the very first sales call I went on, it was a 5-zone ductless job. The very first sales call, I was training with the owner, and he got sick, and I was training with him for like 2 months, and he's like, hey man, I'm not feeling too good. He's like, do you think you could run these calls today? And again, like, I'm very big into like the present moment, and I just realized that wasn't like something bad for me. That was an opportunity. So when opportunity comes knocking at my door, I'm always going to answer it.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your host, Brian Burton, in 8 minutes.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast, joining you now with a brand new logo, thanks to Dan Antonelli. We sure appreciate that, and we are looking and feeling fresh and clean. And we're really excited to talk to our guest today, Kevin Polito. He's going to be joining us here in just a minute to talk about his $5 million run, the Beast of the East Comfort Advisor on this side of the world. And we're looking forward to having a good conversation with him about sales, his journey, and everything else in between. But for right now, Brian and I are going to spend just a minute talking about those things ourselves and turn to Brian for our quote.
Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Seneca. Seneca the younger, as it were.
I didn't realize there was an older.
Well, yeah, his pops, the old man. Okay. Philosophers and writers and like ancient Rome. You know what Seneca...
I feel like that was a quote that his father beat into him. That's what that sounds like right there.
Seneca was like a crazy story. They got to make a movie about this dude. A lot of these dudes in this time. Seneca was a mentor of Nero early on. And I don't know if they had a falling out or what, but like Seneca and his maybe nephew or something, like was it Lucas or something? I don't know. You have to look it up. But like we're convicted of trying to assassinate Nero, and like these dudes had to, I don't know how they forced a suicide, but they pulled it off. Like they forced these dudes to kill themselves, and being, stoic, like Seneca famously just silently and just with all coolness in the world took his own life. Opened a vein, as they called it back in the day.
Wow, that's really uplifting, Brian. So let's talk about inspirational stories.
Here's the thing. Here's the Waste No Day thing. You think you got problems?
Imagine being forced to commit suicide.
Yeah, you don't have calls. I don't have calls.
I mean, Jeffrey Epstein over here. Okay.
Oh, yeah, back to Dan Antonelli. Selflessly designing a new logo for the Waste No Day podcast. What's funny is before he did that, and we're going with that new logo, that thing's sick. My brother was texting me that he's digging, he owns a business in Michigan, Ready Jetter, and that he's like reading Dan's book, Blanded, Not Branded. And he's like, dude, this thing's changing the game for me. And it is a really good book. And we talk about Dan fairly often on the show, but probably not often enough, especially since he crushed that new logo for us.
Well, he's been on the show, my man.
He has been on the show. Yep. But yeah, well, we bring him up in groups, and I tag him in these trade groups I'm part of where people are struggling with something to do with their brand or lack thereof usually. And I just immediately invite Dan Antonelli to the group and say, just talk to this guy. Because every time I have a conversation with him about anything to do with the brand of a company, I mean, I get the answer, maybe not necessarily that I was looking for, because I'm usually looking for an answer that just makes me feel better about me. Usually I feel like a 5-year-old for whatever I thought was the right answer. And my pops just came up to me and steered me straight. But I'm also blown away by how much this thing makes sense to him. Like, forget the fact that he designed the branding, the logos for like A1 Garage Door for Tommy Mello and Ghetto for Ken Goodrich, and all these huge, amazing brands that are just killing it. The guy's just he's a gem of the industry. He's one of these legends that we're just lucky to be around at the same time as. And there are certain people I feel like that about, the two people I just mentioned, and probably Roy H. Williams is definitely up there for me. But Dan, yeah, for sure. If you haven't read Blanded, Not Branded, and you're any kind of business owner or manager, you should check that book out. There's I want to say there's a chapter by Heather Ripley in there where she talks about, well, just read the book. It's a great book. She has a good chapter in it. Was texting with her this morning. She's going to be coming on the show soon as well. But I can't recommend Dan's book enough. And definitely want to do that right now because his brand his logo for Waste No Day is so cool. Such a cool logo.
Yeah, make sure you catch his episode. That was November 14th of last year, 2022.
Yep, good episode, but the book, unlike most movies, when people say the book was better, I'm like, yeah, right. You can't even see the people in the book. And plus you have to read it. The book, when compared to the podcast, book's way better. Way better. It's not even close.
Well, we're going to have a good podcast today with Kevin Polito. He is a comfort advisor from the Northeast. I'm not sure that we've ever had anybody on from the Northeast before.
Well, it depends on what you mean by Northeast, I guess, like Virginia and Maryland and, well, New Jersey we've had on.
Dude, you say that one more time and the South will literally rise again. Virginia and Maryland? Are you kidding me? Northeast? Mason-Dixon line, buddy.
Okay.
Get back here
What's
to Pennsylvania.
The Northeast?
I mean, anybody from Pennsylvania, including Ellen Rohr and anybody from my shop, they would technically count as the Northeast. But, this guy's true Northeast. He's a mass guy.
Yeah, that's as Northeast as you can get, pretty much.
Almost. No, that'd be Maine. Maine. But
Maine's a little
well
bit higher.
done. Killed it on geography class.
Yeah. Hey, remember that time we went to Maine, buddy? That was a good time. Did some fly fishing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Rode on a float plane. Yeah. Anywho. Boy, so Bunny Trail City today, huh? Hey, I wanted to say what's up to Ryan Driscoll real quick, because Ryan Driscoll heard me on Tommy, listened to some Waste No Day episodes. He lives and works here locally in Phoenix. Hit me up. We went out to lunch today and chatted about the future and goals and stuff like that. And it was just cool to hang out with him a little bit. Our operations manager here in the Phoenix, Ben Franklin, Daryl, joined us as well. Want to say what's up to Daryl too, because he listens every single week and is a avid Waste No Day follower. Gets to hang out with me in the office all day now, which he's like, I think he'd probably say I'm overrated at this point. It's been 3 whole days, so
it took him that long.
You remember that, Nate?
You being overrated, or
what? Yeah. No, I don't agree with that at all. But what it was like to hang out with me in an office all day.
Being overrated, yes, clearly.
The joys of hanging out with me in the same building all day. I think I'm chaotic on a microphone. You should be in person with me, trying to get me on one subject at a time.
Well, we certainly appreciate everybody who does listen on a weekly basis. And Kevin's actually one of those guys. And we're excited to talk to him today about sales, which we haven't done a true comfort advisor sales episode in quite some time.
No, it's been a hot minute. And we need to, because, well, there's a reason a comfort advisor episode is our most downloaded episode, where we talk about sales in the trades. And the comfort advisor, for those outside of the HVAC industry, is a salesperson, HVAC salesperson. That's who you call in just to give the estimate on new equipment. And there's versions of that in all of the all home service trades. But yeah, so having Kevin on, he hit me up I think a week ago and said, man, he'd love to come on the show. And I'm like, you know what? We have a great episode coming that was supposed to drop when this episode did. Another trainer, negotiator from the Black Swan Group, Sandy Hine, our first female negotiation trainer, which I'm really, really excited about releasing. But I said, man, a $5 million comfort advisor, it's been a minute since we did that, did an interview like that. And what are we doing? Like, this is what we do. So let's put that one out first,
Absolutely. And we're going to have a good time talking with him today. Yeah, man, looking forward to it. And we're going to spend some time talking with him. But now it is that coveted time that everybody looks forward to, the review of the week.
Selena Septic Service, rock stars, 5-star, have been listening to Waste No Day for a while now, and it's been very impactful in my life and my business. The interviews are top notch. The information here is worth hundreds of millions of dollars when implemented and executed.
Is it? Because I haven't seen that paycheck.
I've seen zero of those dollars. In fact, many of those dollars have left my own pocket.
Selena Septic, if you are in let's say if you have some of those millions, please feel free. I'll get you my
Send
address.
Nate's way.
Brian will get you his address.
I share this podcast with all of my employees and friends in the home services. Keep it up, Nate and Brian. Nate and Brian.
Finally, somebody who put the right name
What
first.
is this nonsense? Again, it's not even in alphabetical order, for crying out loud.
It is in order of priority and importance, though.
It says septic services, but I got to think it's an electrician with the lack of alphabetical order there.
Well, Selena Septic Services, nice alliteration, by the way. We appreciate you. And
Waste No Day thanks you for the review and for sharing it, not only with the employees, but with friends in the trades, because that's how the episode gets bigger. And for us, that's how we get bigger guests, reviews, and shares. So if you would be so kind as to pull over, grab that phone, scroll down to write a review, press the 5-star button, and you can be done right there. That's it. But if you're on Apple and you want to go further, then you write a little review. Tell us how you feel about the show. Tell us how you feel about Nate. Just give him the business, but make sure you do a 5-star when you do it. All right. And then press submit, and we'll read your review on the air very soon. I mean, we probably got 6, 7, 8 weeks until we're caught up on reviews. So we'll be at yours soon if you leave it fast enough.
I love it. Well, what we're going to transition into now is our conversation with Mr. Kevin, and we're going to put him in your passenger seat right now. Our guest today is Kevin Polito. He is based out of Lowell, Massachusetts. He was raised by his grandmother due to a lot of family struggles, and in high school, he fell in love with HVAC, and he's been doing it for the last 20 years. He started in install and eventually got moved into service. Those 20 years may be full of bad choices for him and unfortunate circumstances, but in 2019, he had a come-to-Jesus moment that completely changed his life and his outlook. We're going to talk to him about that and so much more today. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Nate, thanks a lot, my man. Appreciate you guys for having me on. I'm really looking forward to spending some time here and making this connection with you guys. So thank you, and Brian as well.
Oh, Brian as well. Yeah, you're welcome.
I was fine with the original. You could have just stuck with Nate. I mean,
no, we're excited to have you on. It's been too long since we did like an HVAC selling episode, right? It's been a minute, and certainly since we had a comfort advisor on, and you reached out to me like, hey, bucket list items to do this. And then we talked about what your numbers were. And I'm like, shoot, you could have been doing it you could have come on 2 years ago. Talking about this legit producer. Like, let's go. And, my favorite part about it is Kevin's on a, should hit 5 million in HVAC residential sales this year. And on the East Coast. Thank you very much. A lot of props for those West Coast big dogs.
The East Coast, also known as the right coast, the best coast. I mean, we can go on.
Is there a lot right about that coast? Certainly not the north.
Yeah. Maybe not up in the New England side of things, but as we head south.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, let's just settle the debate right here, Kevin. So, who do you cheer for in football season?
I mean, got to be the Pats.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. It's good to have you on, buddy. It was a great show. Really appreciate everything you're doing. And
I almost said the Eagles. I almost did.
You would have had Nate for sure.
Well, as this episode is going to launch, the Eagles and the Patriots will have already decided their first game against each other.
Yep.
So
we'll have to have some trash talking. Going if we win, you better expect a message from me.
Is it trash talk picture. If it's? I mean, when the competition levels are so out of whack, I don't know if that really counts.
Hey, a win's a win. That's how I look at it.
Well, we're going to be talking about how you're winning today, Kevin, and you certainly are in your current position as a comfort advisor. And so I want to talk to you first about your history. How did you get into the trades? We always like to learn a little bit about our guests. So start there and tell us your background.
Sure. So I took HVAC in high school. I graduated in 2001. And directly out of high school, I ended up going to a co-op job where I was out in the field, got to experience, getting rashed on by all the older guys. I'm a, 16-year-old kid running around these big commercial HVAC job sites, hanging tin, banging tin, duct sealing, doing all that stuff. And that was the moment I can remember like it was yesterday. Just something in me was like, I really enjoyed doing this. I really loved HVAC. I liked all the different things you could do, whether it's banging duct together, hanging it, like the rounds, the fabricating. I ended up getting into that. I spent a couple years in a sheet metal shop, and then pretty much the natural progression of an HVAC tech, where I started off in the trenches and then worked my way up to a junior mechanic where I was a helper, doing more residential stuff. Commercial wasn't really my thing. I ended up, really enjoying the residential side a little bit more because I felt like I got to do a lot more of that. Like you got the low voltage wiring, you got the drainage, the flue piping, gas piping, the whole 9 yards. So, I did that for about, I want to say 5 years. And from there I transitioned into a service technician where I, just kind of cut my teeth on, unbeknownst to me, I didn't really know that I was training myself for what I was going to do in the future, but just really got really good at communicating with homeowners and trying to, knock down that uncomfortable wall when you go. Like as a service tech, I don't think the wall's as sturdy as when you're a sales guy or a comfort advisor. When you're a service guy, people are usually welcoming you in. So I really got to experience that. And really, really enjoyed that, and started easily just mentioning things to people. And next thing I knew was like, we're going to put in a new indoor air quality, package for these folks. We're going to put in a humidification system. And the last company I was at, the Dispatch, she was, and I'm still thankful to this day because I never in a million years thought I would do sales. And she just said to me, she's like, "Have you ever thought about going into sales?" And that was the very moment that the thought manifested in my mind, and I was like, I really had never thought about it. And then I just started thinking about all the stuff I had done leading up to that, and I just went on a journey to just be the best person I could possibly be. And I got a great opportunity at Green Energy Mechanical where I went into the comfort advisor role. That was in 2021. I did $2 million my first year. Last year I did about 3.7 or 3.6 million, and then this year I'm on pace to do 5. And yeah, that's kind of the condensed story. There's a lot of that's the positive side. I had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations on my own, battling my own demons, in my younger years, and somehow was able to pull myself out of it. There's a lot of not great stuff in the industry with guys and things that they do, and things that you see as a young kid and you think that that's normal. And I got wrapped up in a lot of that stuff, and I had like a whole, whatever you want to call it, spiritual awakening, right before I ended up getting my comfort advisor job. And yeah, I just went full steam ahead, and just tried to become the best version of myself that I possibly could.
I love it, man. And that's what we're about here on the podcast, as you know. And that's also what we're going to be interested in talking with you about today. I'm imagining some of our Southern and Western listeners are still trying to figure out what banging tin means. Could you explain that?
So yeah, banging tin is ductwork. A tin knocker. We have all different names. But yeah, banging tin would be, you're doing an attic job, a basement install. You're on your hands and knees with your knee pads on, banging tin. You're banging all your duct together, sealing it up, wrapping it. So yeah, that's what banging tin is.
Yeah,
that's tin knocker.
Tin knocker, yeah.
Definitely something that our Southern compatriots of the show are unfamiliar with. So love the story, Kevin, and I don't think that yours is an unfamiliar one when it comes to overcoming demons and getting back on the right path. Yeah. So kudos to you, man. And for anybody listening, just like here right now, if you're struggling with some of that stuff, if you're wrapped up in some of that stuff, take this as a mental note or an opportunity or a knock on the door or whatever you want to call it to say, there is a different side of the trade, and you can still be in the trade, and yet you can change your ways, you can change your habits, and you can change your future. Kevin's living proof of that, so we love it, man.
Yeah, if you're at that hateful, horrible place full of negativity and people just out to get each other and ripping each other off and ripping the client out, leave. You don't have to be there. There's plenty of opportunity right now. But I'm curious, and congrats, man, on overcoming what you overcame. But what are some things you do? And let's break it down a little bit more granular and talk about like on a real right now basis. I mean, we guaranteed we have listeners who are just in a funk and struggling and really need to be pulled out. And what are some practical things you did, or maybe even that you do today?
I still do. I try not to go off the deep end getting too wonky, because this is a subject that I'm very passionate about, is like trying to help people overcome these things, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I went through so much stuff as like a child as well. Like I've seen things and gone through things that nobody should have ever had to. So for me to be, productive today like I am is it's crazy.
What, did Nate do a solo episode that I didn't hear about?
Yeah. He's still offended from the gun show that he saw last week.
Oh man, he was rocking the sleeveless. I posted it on Facebook.
Looking ripped, bud.
Yep.
So I mean, for me, like Brian just hit it on the head. Like I was in in a deep, dark place that I don't wish anybody to be in. I had so many things in my life to be grateful for, and the last thing I was every day was grateful for anything. I was miserable. I have 3 beautiful, healthy children, a beautiful wife that stuck by me through all the crap that I put her through. So like I said, I try not to go too deeply into it, but I found faith in something much, much bigger and greater than myself. And I just kind of let that lead the way. We all have this innate power inside of us that is dying to be let loose. And if you can find a way to tap into it, which I did through meditation and things like that, that was a really, really big instrumental piece to the puzzle for me was meditation, really just trying to figure out what was going on. Like, who am I? What am I doing here? Like, why am I doing these things when these other people are doing these other things? Especially like as a service technician, like going into these homes that are like I'm living in this crappy apartment and I'm going into these $1 million homes where people have stuff in their basement covered in dust that they never use, where I would kill to have some of that stuff. So just like really started asking myself deeper questions about, what and doing research. I started really going down that path of self-help and just trying to gain knowledge. I have so many books under my belt now. The first really big one that changed everything was Think and Grow Rich. That really just shined a light on like, hey, like anybody can be wealthy, anybody can be successful, but you just have to understand it and be able to see it in your mind's eye.
Napoleon Hill. Yeah, he had a quote in there that said, the fact that someone has done it is proof that you can do it.
Yep.
Freaking.
Yep.
Man, that one just dug into me the first time I read it.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I meet some people where I'm like, dude's just a lot smarter than me. You know what I mean? Or
no, some people, yeah.
But you meet some people, sometimes. Brian, or most people.
So yeah, that was the biggest thing for me, is like finding something larger than myself. Because like I said, I had turned to everything externally. I tried everything to try to fulfill. Like, that's what we're all searching for, right? To be happy, to feel full and purposeful. And I looked everywhere outside of me to try to fill that void. But man, the moment I looked internally and started asking myself questions, deeper questions, it changed. It completely changed my life. I went from, and I mean, it literally happened, like, I swear to God, it happened overnight. It was like a turnaround that was incredible. And then I just never turned back the other way. I just stayed focused on just making sure that I was doing everything I could to make sure that I was getting better every single day, no matter, and I committed to myself, no matter how good I get, I'm always going to make sure that I'm still getting better every day. So, and that happened before the job, before the Comfort Advisor stuff. That was kind of a year or two into the service tech, and then I just started killing it at service technician. You know, I was communicating awesome. I was selling jobs, even though they were smaller jobs, like I said, like air quality, humidifiers, stuff like that, like new thermostats, whatever it is. But I just started, all that stuff was just like coming to me. I just woke up every day and went out into the world and be myself, and it was life changing. So those are the couple things that I did, that I still do, that I really, really believe that if anybody's struggling, look, spend some time with yourself, sit down, reach out to somebody. The other thing is, like, reach out to somebody that has been there before, that's gone through it, like, that can give you some words of encouragement or some words of advice.
So, Kevin, I want to ask you, because I find it curious. I mean, you said something there that you were going into $1 million houses where people had dust covering stuff that you could only dream of having, right? And it was secondary to them. It was nothing. It was storage items.
Yeah.
Some guys would see that and they would get bitter. They'd get angry. They start raging at the rich and how all these people can have all this stuff and I can't, and it's unfair, and so on and so forth. So how did you choose a different path in terms of, like, you obviously took that and you took it as motivation to do something about it and make a difference, whereas other people take it as an excuse, So why were you different?
So, I mean, I think for a long time, that's how I was. Like, I'd be like, well, it must be nice. Like, it must be nice to be them. Like, this guy's got everything. And that's because that's how you're programmed. Like, that's how everybody acts.
He's lucky. His dad had money.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, look at this guy. He's got all this stuff. I have nothing. Like, must be nice. That's like, must be nice. I've probably said that a million times. But then, like I said, I had that moment that just, I broke into a whole new, like, I felt like a whole different person, and I stopped being negative. Like, that was a big thing, is negativity for me was like kryptonite. Like, I had to just be positive about everything, and I started looking at it like, well, instead of being like, oh, that's nice, it was like, well, I would ask myself, and I can remember doing it, like driving by the homes and like, well, I wonder what it would be like. Like, I wonder what it would take to live in a home like this. I wonder what it would be like to, asking myself, reframing it and asking myself in a different way, which doesn't make you bitter. It doesn't make you negative. It doesn't give you the hatred for the rich, because let's face it, like, everybody wants to be rich, bro. Like, who doesn't? Like, who doesn't want to have all those things? Like, but until you can understand what it takes to get those things, you just end up living a bitter, miserable, negative life. And that's just the way the world is, man. You look at all the stuff, you turn the news on, it's just negativity after negativity. There's nothing good on there. I don't know, it's a lot of negativity out there. So I chose to be that positive beacon anywhere I go. You know, anybody that ever meets me or bumps into me, I'm gonna make sure that they remember me. Yeah.
Yeah, now people are saying must be nice to be Kevin Polito, man.
That guy has
They may be.
That guy has all
They
the
may be.
cards stacked in his favor.
Yeah, but hey, I work my tail off for it, man. Like I said, I'm always doing something to make myself better. Like when I'm driving around all day at work, you know, there's things that I do that other guys just tell it to them and they're like, dude, how? Like I don't listen to music when I'm driving around them when I'm working. I only listen to like podcasts, whether it be a lot of the time
I don't
it is
retain
Waste No Day.
enough of it, so I don't listen to stuff like that. I like to watch it
Yeah.
better. I
Yeah,
just don't
I'm like-
retain it when I'm driving.
Believe me, watching
Yeah,
you talk, Brian, is no better.
Oh, I don't recommend it.
That's
But
just-
no, it's you guys. What else? I love Build with Rob Deerdeck, who's just, that guy is just an absolute like monster. Like just, I'm super like big into like the mindset, like the spirituality, energy. Like we're all energy. Everything in this room, and everything in your room, and Nate's room, it's all made up of the same stuff. You know, everything. It's all the same when you break it all the way down to the finest form. So, you know, that was another thing that I started tinkering with in my mind was energy and trying to wrap my head around that, which has been a mission in itself.
Yeah,
But I'll never quit.
Rob's a motivation machine. That's the guy from Rob and Big,
Oh,
right?
he's awesome. Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
rest
So
in
he has
peace,
a
Big.
podcast. I know. R.I.P. Big. But yeah, it's called Build with Rob, and they're kind of short. So I mean, obviously this podcast is great. I can just go through and shuffle through and listen to any of them. Like I said, the Daniel Arroyos one was awesome. Joe Cunningham, that one was incredible. I think it was Fear Words. That
Tom
one
Hopkins.
like changed my whole. Yeah. Oh, was it Tom Hopkins? I get it mixed up, but I know Joe Cunningham was great. You know, Joe Crisera. Obviously, the Chris Voss one, Brandon Voss. So I mean, all that stuff is like you're hearing it from people that have done it. So you know, it's like I feel like I don't know. You have to want it. You know, some people are okay with being mediocre. I'm just not. You know, I was for a long time, but I'm just getting older. We only have one ride on this rock, so I want to make it memorable and make sure that I make it memorable for my wife and my kids as well.
Here, buddy. You just kind of summed up the whole waste no day mindset, which is really that. It's like, you know, I was thinking, like, I just turned 44. I'm never going to be that 43 age again. I only got to do that one time. Now, how did I spend that 43rd year? And it really had me thinking about how I'm going to spend, or so far have spent, my 44th year. And that just, was not able to start my new position yet. And you know, Labor Day weekend just passed, and just really late in the game, I just decided, let's go to drive to Newport Beach for 5.5 hours on a Friday and stay 3 nights and go whale watching and do whatever else they have to offer there with the kids, and then drive home. Because, like, what else are we going to do? I'm only 44 once. They're only, 9 once and 6 once. And
9 and 6.
my wife's, only going to be 20 once. So,
Hey, good
make
man.
sure someone
My
sends her
wife's
that
only
clip,
19.
please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, you mentioned that you're a big anti-negativity guy. And so I want to shift gears here and turn into our sales conversation. And I find it curious how somebody such as you, who has grown up in the trades, I mean, you've been in it since high school, out of high school, and you've been around what I can only imagine is the stereotypical bitter at life HVAC technician. And generally, that character is pretty negative as a whole, but very negative when it comes to sales. So was it what kind of mind shift did you have to do in your head to embrace the sales culture? And who did you have to, or should I say, what tape recordings in your head did you have to delete of all the people that were telling you sales? Yeah, you're another one of those rip-off guys if you do that stuff. To get yourself into a positive mindset towards the idea.
Yeah. So the mindset was something that I was kind of working through. I was working up till before I got the sales job. So when I actually went into sales initially, I had already built like this gigantic momentum. Like I have me and my best friend, we still talk about it today. Like I would tell him, almost every week I was like, dude, like I can just feel something's gonna happen for me in my work, and it's gonna be crazy. And I would tell him like, dude, I'm gonna be wealthy. I just know it. And I had already had that mindset going, and when the job popped up, the stressful thing was my wife. Like she was not like, I'm trying to explain to her how this works. Like I go from, doing all right. I was making like whatever, like $65,000-$70,000 a year, and then I'm like, yeah, well, that was the most money I had ever made in my life, and now I'm trying to convince her like, hey, I'm gonna go be a salesman, and she was super stressed out about it. But we had a couple long conversations, and I ended up making the jump. But the hardest thing for me, I think, was like deleting the technical talk, because when you're trying to, provide solutions to people, the last thing you want to do is start bringing up things that could end the deal, like, words like SEER rating and high efficiency and modulating and stuff like that, because it just makes people ask more questions. So that was the harder part for me, was like the technical aspect. But I came into the job like, that's why the owner of my company, that's one of the reasons why he reached out to me. I had started this campaign on Facebook where I was just posting like all types of just motivational, influential, positive stuff. Like I posted like my story on there, like, because it does get deep, and like I try to, unless someone really asks me, like I try to leave all the, nooks and crannies out of it. But I had posted the whole thing on Facebook and like got super vulnerable with people. And yeah, I just, I had that momentum built going into the sales role, and I was just ready for it. Like the very first sales call I went on, it was a 5-zone ductless job. The very first sales call, I was training with the owner, and he got sick, and I was training with him for like 2 months, and he's like, hey man, I'm not feeling too good. He's like, do you think you could run these calls today? And again, like I'm very big into like the present moment, and I just realized that wasn't like something bad for me. That was an opportunity. So when opportunity comes knocking at my door, I'm always going to answer it. So that opportunity, hey, do you want to go run these calls? Some guys might have said no, might have been like, oh, I'm not ready yet. But I was like, yeah, like absolutely. What's the address? Showed up there, sold my first job, and it's been, just negativity is just it's not allowed anywhere around me anymore. And it's just, I'm so positive that I just push it all away. It can't even get close.
So this is all pretty fresh to you. When did you make that transition, Kevin? 2.5 years ago, give or take?
To Comfort Advisor? Yeah, so 2021, beginning of 2021, I ran.
Right in the heart of COVID too, and especially in the Northeast, where that was a legitimate concern up your way. So what were some of the fears that you had to overcome in your own mind when you started running those sales calls? I mean, that first one, what's going through your head? What's racing in your heart there in terms of like, is this going to blow up on me? Like, did I make a terrible decision? Am I going to say something stupid? What were the fears that you had to overcome?
Exactly. Like, don't say anything stupid. Like, and, put your booties on. Like, make sure, you're making eye contact. Don't, because I had trained with him, and I knew the process. I knew what I had to do, and it was just making sure I did it. So, that was, the biggest fear was like, can I do this? Like, and that was it. It was like, well, here it is. Like, this is call number one. Like, this is going to be the make or break moment, and then I did my whole thing, did the spiel, sat down, got the job. But, that was fearful. And then just the whole COVID thing was very fearful as well, because we didn't know what was going to happen. Right. So I made that transition, right in the heart of COVID, like you said, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I left my old job on good terms. They had already told me, like, listen, if anything, whatever, you can come back. But I'm super hyped to say that I didn't ever have to go back there. We made it work. And, those were the biggest fears, were just making sure that it was a good fit, and I was going to be able to do this, because especially having that positive mindset and trying to be genuine and I want to help people. Like, that was my biggest goal, is like, I want to serve, I want to help people, and it just so happens that HVAC is going to be the way that I do it. So just making sure that I was being as genuine and transparent and honest as possible, without just laying down for the people, right? Like I still have to do my thing and go through the sales process like I did. But yeah, it was just those few things, and it all worked out great. It all worked out great.
Now, you mentioned that one of the biggest challenges that you had making the transition from technician to comfort advisor was eliminating the jargon, where
Yeah.
you were used to saying things like SEER and high efficiency and modulating this and compressing this and whatever. And that might be received a little bit better as as a service technician, where you kind of are wearing your technician hat. And then now you're putting on that comfort advisor hat, you're putting on that sales hat. And so you're having to adjust the jargon piece, which we would recommend really no matter what position you're in. You want to be very cautious about that. What would you say were some of the other significant changes that you had to make in your presentation, if any, from being a technician to going full sales?
So the biggest change for me, honestly, was like all the technology. Like I'm on a computer now. Like I'm used to like using my hands and like banging tin, right? Like being a tin knocker and hanging ductwork and cutting my hands up. So that was one of the big changes. Was like, all right, like so this is what I do now. I just like I wear like fancy clothes and like I comb my hair and like I always just showed up like, hat on, jeans, boots. Like that was my job. So those were the big like things for me that I had to adjust to. But I mean, yeah, it all happened so quick too, man. Like to really like pinpoint like certain things, it was just like even this whole past couple of years has been kind of like a blur. I've been just like going with the flow and just riding this incredible wave that I've been on. But yeah, the lingo, the job scope, and then honestly like I don't want to say responsibility, but the pressure, but like knowing that I have these 15 guys that are relying on me, because for a little while I was the only comfort advisor at the company. So now like that was a big why. Like I was really big on making sure every day I had my whys. Like why am I doing this? And that was at the forefront. Is I need to make sure that these guys have jobs because they have families to feed just like me. And if I don't sell jobs, these guys don't work. And if these guys don't work, then that's no bueno. So, that was another big thing, like a hurdle that I had to kind of grapple with is, knowing that I needed to sell jobs, not only to feed my family, but to make sure that these guys that trusted me and being, the face of the company, I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Absolutely. You mentioned something there, Kevin, about, the change of appearance was a significant portion for you. Going to the business professional dress, which,
Yeah.
there's different models out there. Some comfort advisors wear the technician uniform. Other comfort advisors do the suit and tie thing or the polo or whatever. And one thing I want to ask you about here is that in making that transition, sometimes people look at comfort advisors and say, dude, you got the life, man. You can run calls whenever you want. You can go home whenever you want. It's great. You're like always at a coffee shop and you're not up in attics and all that stuff. It's great. But one thing that I think people miss is that when you walk in there when you walk into the home as a technician, you're wearing a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
I think that naturally brings people's guard down. But when you walk into a home and you're wearing a polo or a suit and tie or something like that, and they know that you are there to sell them a system, it's like game on, buddy, and the defenses are up. Did you find that to be the case when you made that transition?
Oh yeah. I mean, it still happens today. That's the whole like, cowboys and Indians, like they're waiting in the window, like, oh, the sales guy's here, honey, batten down the hatches. Get ready, here he comes. He's coming for our money. But yeah, that was definitely something that I dealt with early on. But like I said, learning my, being able to communicate, like I really, like, I'm always trying to get better, but I feel like I'm a good communicator and I'm a good listener. And I feel like I won't even talk systems or anything like that until until the shoulders are down on the client, until I feel that moment that I've broken that wall down. So that's a big step in my process, is making sure that I arrive properly and then I break the ice. Those are two things. that I do right away. I arrive, I try to look as good as I can. I call beforehand, booties at the door, asking permission to come in, then just breaking the ice. So that way there, when I do want to sit down, that tension's gone. I'll have to say now, 90% of the time when I sit down with people at the table, it's more of like this, like just an open conversation, like, because they understand, like, once people talk to me long enough, it's like, okay, this isn't just a sleazy, fast-talking sales guy, because I'll tell them right off the bat, like, hey, listen, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm here to help you. If we can come up with some solutions that make sense for you, I'd love to get you on the schedule. If not, that's fine too. So let's just go through the process and see where we end up. But yeah, breaking that ice down and making sure that you communicate and you listen. I think the more we can listen as comfort advisors, because obviously as sales guys, I don't know if we love anything more than to talk. We were blessed with that gift to gab. But listening is far more important than talking when you're on a sales call.
I think that's interesting you bring that up, Kevin, because you do have a natural gift of communication. And not everybody in the technician or trades field is blessed with that. And so when you say things like, I don't sit down until we're on like a good bonding and rapport level, not everybody computes what that means. Like in your head, is there an alarm that goes off? Do you see them like wink at you and now you know that it's we're good? Or like what happens that you identify, okay, the walls are down, we're good to go? And how can you communicate that moment to somebody such as myself, who's more introverted, or somebody listening who is, struggling with identifying that moment in time and perhaps has proceeded too quickly into presentation or has belabored the point and talked too much about surface level things that the person's kind of like rolling their eyes and saying like, all right,
Right.
like I got stuff to do here. So what is that magic moment, Kevin, when you say, okay, this is how I know it's time?
It's almost like a feel. Like, it's just like I get the vibe, because when you come in there, I come in like, hey, hey, Nate, how's it going? And then, oh, yeah, the furnace is right over here. And then just at that moment, like, I don't just follow down. Like, I'll be like, oh, that's great. But is it all right if I, tell you a little bit about myself and my company before? I'm sure you've done your research and you looked at our Google reviews. But I'd love to just tell you a little bit about myself before we get started here. And even something just as simple as that, it's now they're like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe, this guy is a real person. He's not just here to sell us something, because if he was, he probably would have just came right down here to the furnace and said, oh, it's going to be $8,800. Let's get this thing going. But I really try to be genuine with it. Like, I won't just, oh, how's the weather? Or, oh, it's hot day out there today, huh? I try to make it personal, and, I don't know. It's just something that I just go with the flow of it. I go into the home. Sometimes I will go down to the furnace, but I don't talk any technical stuff until I get that part out of the way, which is like my introduction, because that would be rude of me if I come into your home and I don't even introduce myself. Yes, I have my name on my shirt, but I want to really extend my thanks and my gratitude that I'm even here, and that's even something like, hey, listen, there's 100 HVAC companies in the Boston area. So I just really want to thank you for, reaching out to us and giving us this opportunity to come out here and take a look at your existing system and come up with some options for you and some solutions. So I really just want to thank you. And just something even like that is like, that there's different things that will knock the wall down, but you can usually just tell in body language. Like, I'm always trying to read people's body language, their tone of voice, eye contact. Like, if people, and listen, sometimes you're just up against a negative Nancy, and sometimes like I'll be like, all right, and I'll just throw in the towel, and it's like, listen, I got another call. I'm not going to sit here and try to go through that, because at the end of the day, those folks are usually going to line up all the estimates and say, all right, this is the cheapest one, we're going to go with that guy, not our customer. They're just not going to be a good fit for us. But if I'm making that connection and I'm having that good conversation, then yeah, I can always tell when that happens. It's just like I said, it's like a whole demeanor change. maybe now all of a sudden the wife is there. Maybe at first I come in and it's just the husband and he's like the guard dog, right? And then next thing I know, I'm having the conversation with him, and maybe the wife's in the kitchen and she's just listening to me, and then all of a sudden she comes around the corner and now they're both there, and now they're both listening to me. And that probably comes with the knowledge, and I've just done this for so long, so I can have intelligent conversations with people about their systems, about how the airflow is, about how the system's operating. And I don't think a lot of, comfort advisor sales guys, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think a lot of them do that. I think a lot of them just think sales background is enough to cut the cake, but I really believe that having a hybrid of both is really it allows you to be really a top performer.
Totally agree with you there. And I think there's so much value that comes along with the ability to say and communicate with the client both repair and replacement options right there at the table. If you're strictly sales and like the repair element is foreign to you, you can kind of get a little bit lost there in terms of like, when they start asking questions, well, what if we would repair it? And like, oh, well, I mean, we can certainly talk about that. We could bring your technician back in. I mean, you have the nice ability to discuss both things if that is on the table as something that you want to consider. Now, speaking of things that you're going to consider, what percentage of your calls are marketed leads versus tech flips?
So it's probably a little bit heavier on the marketed leads. We did kind of transition towards making, giving the guys the opportunity to flip more leads, or just kind of putting that in their mind, like, let's flip some leads, because it wasn't something we were really doing fluently. And then, like I mentioned, I don't know if it was off air, but the Daniel Arroyas episode really like struck a chord with me. I made sure I sent it to my boss. I said, dude, you got to listen to this and listen to what this guy does, because I think this would be great for what we're trying to do here. And then, we started, really making the guys think about, doing more lead flips, because at the end of the day, too, sometimes it's not the best service. It's not the best solution to fix somebody's 20-year-old furnace. It's 20 years old. Like, is that really the best option? But yeah, we do a high percentage of those tech flips, but definitely a little bit more on the marketed leads for sure. Whether it's Google or, I think Jonathan does campaigns where he's like, I don't know what it's called, click something, like pay-per-clicks or something like that. I don't know what that means, but that's above my pay grade. But yeah, a lot of marketed leads, but people are calling us, so I'm not cold calling. I'm not just showing up. People are reaching out to us. Most of the time they're getting multiple quotes. Another big thing in Massachusetts is we have what's called the Mass Save program. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that.
No, that's new to me.
So the Mass Save program, like, listen to this. You get 0% interest loans up to $50,000 if you're doing HVAC renovations, and then also you get a $10,000 rebate. So if you live in Massachusetts,
this is for energy saving stuff.
Yeah, yep. It has to be like a heat pump or something like that. They'll do it for a high efficiency boiler, but they're really starting to push those. Like, they don't want anybody having gas anymore anywhere. So they want everything to be renewable energy, solar, electricity, all that stuff. So if you're doing a heat pump and it costs you $25,000, you're going to get $10,000 back, and you're going to be able to finance the entire project at 0% interest.
Wow! Whew. All of a sudden, I feel a mass movement of comfort advisors towards the Massachusetts area,
buddy.
Oh man!
But there's a lot of competition here. I'll say there's a lot of good companies, but yeah, the incentives here are nuts. And then you get the $2,000 tax credit. That's federal, the incentive for the Inflation Reduction Act. But yeah, so a lot of marketed stuff, a lot of Mass Save stuff. Like, we're on the Mass Save list, so if somebody goes and like looks up, heat pumps or whatever, like, our name always pops up. So yeah, it's a pretty hungry, pretty hot market for all that stuff.
Yeah, those are definitely some pretty sweet incentives and certainly hard to pass by. But I still got to give you some kudos, man. If you're running the majority of your calls, if you're running them as marketed leads, I think that's very impressive to be on track to do 5 million.
They are they are the toughest lead you can run.
For sure. So many of our comfort advisors would I don't want to say would struggle, would rather have a tech flip than a marketed lead. And why wouldn't you? Because it's a handoff from a technician to you, and it's already kind of primed and the person's already in the mindset. Whereas a marketed lead, like, yeah, you know you're going up against multiple estimates. You know you're going up against a brand new cold client that you've never met before. They may have never done business with your company before. And so that makes a lot more sense why you're spending so much time on the bonding and rapport piece. Not that that wouldn't be a good idea anyways. But I mean, this, in many of these cases, this is probably the first time that these clients have used your company.
Right. Yeah. And if I'm going into a tech flip, then the process is a little bit different. Like I don't spend a lot of time grinding at the beginning because I feel like they already know what's happening. Like the tech has already set us up. Like we have a whole process for that. Like the tech has set me up for success. So I'm showing up there and I'm going to, not get right to it, but I don't spend all the time like I normally do. If it's a marketed lead, I'll just get right in there and, hey, I know Nate was here earlier and, I know you guys talked about some repair options and I'll get them to confirm with me. It sounds like that's something that's not on the table. You're not really interested in that. And then they'll say, no, really not. We're looking to replace it. And then, all right, so you're looking to get this thing replaced. Now they tell me twice, right? So the psychology that's there also comes into play. And then I just get right to it. I'll go down there and take some measurements, but I already have them all. I already have all the pictures from the tech. I don't need to do any of that stuff, but I still don't want to just sit right down and give them the price. I'll go down and poke around a little bit and just kind of muck it up with them and just talk normal stuff and then go upstairs and sit down and present my solutions.
Hey, if you have not heard the episode that Kevin's talking about that kind of changed the game for his team in terms of getting more tech flip leads, it is the Daniel Arroyas episode, and that is from December 5th, 2022 on the Waste No Day podcast. It was fire. It is our most downloaded episode ever. So guessing really? Most of you have heard it. But if you have not, or if you haven't heard it in a long time and this one's striking a chord with you, go back, listen to that one again, because these two are right on that same level. It's a lot of mindset stuff and a lot of legit strategies to get better at this.
Yep.
So, Kevin,
you got to want it. You have to want to get better, man.
You sure do. And obviously you do. And yet not every client that you see wants it, as you say. So what is your favorite objection to get when you're sitting down in front of a client? What's your favorite objection to hear, and how do you overcome it?
So I've kind of fixated in my own mind that all objections are price objections, no matter what they say. I got to think about it. Nate, we spent a lot of time today. I've given you a lot of information. What exactly do you, what exactly are you needing to think about? Is there something that I left out? Or if it's too expensive, that's like an easy one. Like, then you create some basis on like what that means. Like, what does that mean? What do you mean by it's too expensive? Like compared to what? And now you kind of can, again, the hardest part for a sales guy to just be quiet and listen, and then they'll tell you like, I had another estimate, and then you can go to work on that however you have to.
It's so true what you said. Like the hardest thing is to listen, because as soon as you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking, what's my rebuttal going to be? Like, you immediately start strategizing, and when you're newer, and you really want to, try to overcome objections and get started at it, that's way more difficult to get an objection. Ask the qualifying question, as Tom Hopkins would call it, and his for that exact objection was always the same, which was, you certainly have a reason for saying that, Mr. Minnick. Would you mind sharing with me what it was?
Love that.
And let them break down, because like you're saying, you don't know if you're dealing with someone who's saying, I can't afford $15,000 right now, or if it's someone who's saying in their head, I only have $14,300 for this project. or if it's someone who
Yeah.
doesn't know you have monthly payments, or if it's someone who has another estimate for $8,000. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And the second you spit a rebuttal out, you may have just created objection number 2. So you
got to get more information. Always. I try to ask as many, just question after question, without being super obvious about it. Like, even if I ask a question and they give me an answer, if I can follow it up with another question to get more information, I'm just loading up my backpack full of tools so that at the end, when I am sitting down and they say, "Oh, Kevin, like that's a lot of money." Like, yeah, listen, Brian, I totally agree. It is a lot of money, but I remember at the beginning of this call, we kind of had this conversation that you were interested in looking at some premium options, and then whatever you want to say after that, like, should we just eliminate this top option here and look at something a little bit more economical? And just kind of, I don't think there's any one way to overcome any objection. You just have to stay in the batter's box and don't throw in the white towel.
It's almost
just
like
stay in there until,
it's almost like overcoming, quote unquote, is probably the wrong word, where it's just like you're not really, because rarely did you, quote unquote, overcoming an objection mean they're now saying yes. It's just like you said, staying in the batter's box. You're just getting one more opportunity to ask again. And usually what the reason younger salespeople who are younger to the game fail on that is it's very easy to take an objection as a rejection, and to think that because they're giving you a reason they don't think they can do it, they're saying I don't want to do it, I will not do it, when they're saying, here's a reason I don't think I can do it. Can you help me with this? And, I wish somebody would get a hold of all the clients across the country and across the world and say, hey, start rephrasing your objections. All right. Make it easier for these young salespeople. Start saying, well, I'd love to do this. Here's a reason I think I cannot. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
Because that's really what they're saying. Yeah. And if you can start hearing objections rephrased in that way, and then thinking to yourself, well, I understand that. Let me think and see if there's a way I can help. And then coming up with a way to help. That's what overcoming the objection is, just walking them through how it can still be done if it's something they really want to do.
Walking them down the hallway like that, that was another kind of thing I envisioned, is like I'm just walking these folks down a hallway and closing all these doors on the left and the right where they're trying to run out, and getting them to that door at the end, which is the sale. Because let's face it, like not many people are going to be like, hey Brian, so yeah, this is going to, this all in, you're looking at about 30 grand. Most people aren't going to be like, oh, Kevin, that sounds fantastic. Where do I sign? Like, that's just human nature. Yeah, like, oh, that's it. It's human nature to be like, oh, I gotta think about that, or it's a lot of money. And then like, well, what makes you say that? Well, I was looking on Google, and I Googled how much it costs to install an air conditioner, and it says $5,000. So you, just like you said, you never know why somebody's saying anything, like, and then, hey, if it's like, I got to think about it, I got to talk it over with my wife. And that's the other thing, like, if it's a valid reason, then that's fine. Like, hey, I got to talk it over with my wife. And I'm like, no, that's fine, Nate. I'd love to come back and sit down with you and your wife. What's your wife's name? And again, just trying to gather more information, caring, right? I care about the whole situation, not just making the sale. And then I'll come back. I'll come back on a Saturday, on a Sunday. It doesn't make a difference to me. If that's what I need to do to make the sale and to close the deal, I will 100% do it every time.
Kevin, you mentioned something there earlier about how you would help somebody step down from something that you heard as a price objection. You said, okay, so maybe this top option isn't what you're looking for. Perhaps you would like something more economical, and you let them tell you yes or no. But I want to ask the question: how do you even get to that place in the first hand? How do you understand whether you should be offering a $10,000 or a $50,000 package? Or how do you know whether you should be offering $5,000 or $15,000? How do you gauge the beginning of their budget without presenting something that was way lower than they expected or way higher than they expected?
Yeah. So I kind of just stick to the process that I do, and it's just I'm going to build options that start at, very premium, because who am I to choose for anybody? It's not my job to choose if you want the 50,000, because I'll tell you, after doing this for the 2.5 years I've done it, you cannot judge a book by its cover. You have no idea what type of money people have. So if I go in there and I undersell something, then I've done them a disservice. So I always start with, the heat pumps are super popular around here. So, my top option is going to be a 20 SEER variable speed heat pump with, a complete air treatment package, which is, an air cleaner, a 24-volt air cleaner, a HEPA filter. That would come with a Wi-Fi digital thermostat. If they have duct work that's been there for 20 years, you better believe that top options has the option for a full duct cleaning. And then I'll just work my way down from there, all the way down to, hey, listen, Nate, if you want me to just come in here and replace your air conditioner with a 13 SEER and a single stage, that option's there. Like, I don't tell them that right away. Like, I'll tell them there's going to be a range of options, but if I talk to them about the top option and they're like, oh, that sounds, that sounds good, how can we get that done? Then I don't have to go down anymore. But if they don't like that, then, there's probably a different tier of equipment. Maybe it's not the Bosch, maybe it's, the GE, which is a little bit less expensive, and they'll save, a couple $1,000. Or if you can do the AC swap out where you're going to save like $7,000, but you're not going to get any rebates. That's the great thing about Mass Save, is when you factor in the $12,000 you're going to get back, the heat pump is 10 out of 10 times going to be the most economical solution if you're looking at the big picture and not just the upfront cost.
Now, on the flip side of that conversation, Kevin, is the objection that you don't want to hear. Is there one that really puts fear into your bones and you're not quite sure if you always handle it perfectly?
Let's see. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I handle them all. Like, I have a flow chart of, I just, I don't let them object. I don't let them, it's like, I know the objections are all price objections. What else are they objecting to? Unless I totally didn't hit it off with them and it's just maybe I looked like, somebody that they hated in high school or something like that, and it's, I don't know. There's not really an objection that really stumps me, and not to say like, oh my god, I'm just this, this sales guru, but I just don't get flustered. Like, if we're not a good fit, we're not a good fit. One lady was like, I told her how much it was, and she was like, Jesus, like, that's way too much money. And that objection, that's scary to me, is when somebody gives me that type of reaction. Now I know they just have no idea what they were up against, and we are a premium company in the Boston area. We do charge a little bit more than other contractors do. But when I get that, like, emotional, like, holy smokes, like, that's a crap load of money. Like, that one usually that one's tough to come back from, I think. The emotional price objection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and it's pretty obvious that you're good at overcoming objections no matter what they are, man. On track to sell 5 million this year on the East Coast is nothing to slouch at, and that's certainly some cucumber numbers, man. So super proud of you for doing that. And as we start bringing things in for a landing here, Kevin.
Not to mention the fact that you're doing it in what's widely considered the worst year in 3 years, right? For the HVAC industry. It is considered certainly across the country. And I was listening to Chris Yano's To The Point podcast on my way home today, and he had Ken Goodrich on again. And anytime Ken Goodrich is on a show, I'm all ears, especially this one. Listen twice. And he asked Ken. He said, and Chris owns a internet marketing company for the trades that is nationwide. And he knows, he said, demand is down across the country. And he asked Ken if he sees that same trend. And Ken said, of course, absolutely. So kudos to you for not only getting it done and having your, record year, nearly doubling your best year, but doing it in what is considered the slowest year in several years in the HVAC industry, just showing that, look, it can be done. You heard a podcast that changed the game for you. You heard somebody who's doing it in a way that's a little more effective. You went back to the leadership at your company and said, listen to this and let's game up and see how we can do this. And, that reminds me of Brent Buckley being on here the first time he was on Waste No Day, where he went and did that exact same thing. And it goes to show, man, be crafty out there.
Yeah.
Whatever your position is, like, you don't own the company, but you affected real change that has you in more homes with better qualified prospects, because now you're getting more tech leads.
And the guys make more money. Like if they flip a lead to me and I sell a $20,000 job, they get, well, I don't even know what they get, like probably a few $100, $300, $400, $500 off of that. Whatever it is. So like now they're making more money, which that's why I do it. That's one of my whys. Is I got to make sure these guys are feeding their families and taking care of their lives just the way I am.
I love the mindset there, Kevin. And as we are wrapping things up here, man, if people are resonating with what you've been talking about today, or the changes that you had to make and overcome obstacles in your life to get to a position where you are, where can they find you?
Yeah, so please, anybody, I know like a lot of folks listen to this, and if anybody's got any type of questions on any, substances, I was, without getting too in depth, I was wrapped up in a bunch of different things that are not good. So, feel free. My email is Polito, Polito, at greenenergymech.com. And then I've done this a couple times, and I've gotten actually some folks to reach out to me. So my personal cell phone number is 978-888-1885. I'd love to hear from anybody. If you need any type of reassurance that you can do it, because if I can do it, I'm telling you, man, if I can do this, anybody can. I don't have anything special. I focus on, being present and being mindful and being positive, and it's really easy. Life is it's a pile of choices, and the choices are all ours to make, and you can make good choices, and yeah, please, if anyone's listening and you're struggling, reach out. I'd love to be that guy.
Yeah, we sure would love if you would reach out to Kevin, shoot him a text, let him know what you thought about his episode. And as we bring it in here, Kevin, you mentioned there that you would love to be that guy. And I wanted to wrap up with this question. Now that you've reached Comfort Advisor, and I don't mean that to be the epitome of, what can be in the HVAC trade. Not everybody would look at that and say that's the top tier, but some guys would. Regardless, you've been in a lot of positions and a lot of different roles in the company, or multiple companies. Looking back over your 20 years and all the things that you've learned, whether it was how to dress or how to conduct yourself or how to communicate or when to talk, when not to talk, or how to overcome an objection. If you could speak to the Kevin Polito of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, if you could speak to the Kevin of yesteryear and say, yo, man, this is what you should be focusing on now to have the success you can in the future, what would be your message to yourself and perhaps to others who are listening today?
Man, I would say that, like I said, I think I touched on it earlier, is that we all have been blessed and birthed with this internal power that not a lot of people use. The power of the mind, the power of the heart. You combine those things, and you can really achieve greatness in life. Like, we're all destined for greatness. Like, anything you could possibly think of that you want in life is already here. You just have to claim it. You have to vibrate on that frequency and understand how to do that. So I would just say, focus on yourself. Don't worry about the outside world. Don't worry about what you see on the news. Focus on yourself and choose to be happy and choose to be positive and choose to make a difference. Make somebody smile every day. Like, I started off like doing that, like holding doors for people. You know, like I'd go out to breakfast with the wife and kids, and pay someone's tab. It sounds so corny and cliche, but you see a dad with a daughter, like cover the tab. Do something good as much as you can, because the more positive energy you put out into the world, the more good you do in the world, it comes back to you. So I think if I would have known that at a younger age, like I could have probably, but I think you still need to, like life has its ups and downs, and you got to definitely go through and level up and level up. But if I could have understood that part of life at a younger age, yeah, I would have been, I would have been really, really grateful for it.
Well, we all have the things that we sure wish we could tell ourselves if we could talk to ourselves from years ago, man. And those are good words to close this out here, Kevin. And if you are listening and you are struggling with something right now, or you're finding yourself in a negative pattern, consider this the wake-up call, man, to make a change and to choose to be a better version of yourself, like we say on the show nearly every week.
And to waste no day, boys. Come on.
Yeah,
right,
buddy. Good talking
Kevin
to you,
Polito,
Kev.
it's good to have you on,
Yes.
man. I just have one final thing for you here. What's the opposite of stop?
Go.
And what are the things that fly in the sky?
All right, I'm done.
All right, buddy.
No, hey,
it's good to have
good
you on,
luck
man.
this season, man. Yeah, it was really great meeting you guys. Like I said, this was bucket list for me, and I can't believe that I just did this with you guys. So thank you guys so much. I'm super grateful, and I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, we barely had to work at all here, buddy. We appreciate you taking the lion's share of the burden of conversation onto your shoulders.
Hey, I love it, man. Thank you guys for the opportunity and the platform, and good luck with I know Brian's got some future stuff, so good luck with that. And I wish you guys all the best.
Thanks, buddy. Let's do it again when you get to 10 million.
Let's do it. You guys will be the first ones I call, man.
See you, Kevin.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great night. Take care.
Hey, that's a wrap for this podcast. We hope that you enjoyed your time listening to Kevin Polito. Great story there of somebody who's overcome so much in his life and is making the most of it and is succeeding at a high level, and a truly high level. Whether you're a comfort advisor, a selling technician, service technician, apprentice, or anybody else in the HVAC or plumbing and electrical trades, his story is one of inspiration and one of encouragement that you too can find success. Changing of your mindset and determination to make the most of your opportunities can take you to places that you have never dreamed of. So thanks so much to Kevin for sharing that with us. A great message. And of course, some really good sales advice in there too, about creating bonding and rapport and making sure that you're overcoming objections and getting the client what they really deserve, which is the best top grade service that you can possibly provide them. We want to be providing you with top grade service as well each and every week. We want to be giving you great episodes and content to listen to. If you love what you're hearing, we'd sure love to hear about it. Drop us a line, leave us a 5-star review, hit us up on social media, and share as much as you can. We really appreciate it. We leave you now with our weekly challenge, which is the same each and every week, to choose to wake up every single day and waste no day.